That's live. Oh,
It takes a minute. It'll pop up. Oh, there, it'll say live.
yep. I think it is.
Here we go.
Live. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Hi, guys. You just heard our little chatter there. Everybody probably knows me by now, but in case you haven't tuned into any of our lives, my name's Ashley Robichaud, and I'm part of the board of directors for Business and Professional Women of Greater Moncton. And I'm excited to have Claire Kelly here with us tonight. Many of you from Greater Moncton probably recognize her. Thanks for joining me, Claire.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited and honored to be part of this series. There are so many amazing of them, like popping up in my feed all the time. I try to catch all of them. I haven't caught all of them, but the ones I have been awesome. So
I'm happy to hear that. We're really just trying to showcase women while we're all so far apart and give people the opportunity to connect in a formal but maybe less formal way. So just so people get a little sense of who Claire is, Claire has lived all across Canada and appreciates every corner of it, but is very proud to call herself a Maritimer. Born in Manitoba and raised in New Brunswick in British Columbia. It is no wonder Claire has always felt passionate about feeling welcomed and respected in a country she loves. She graduated from Mount A, taught English in Japan for 2 years, and traveled to about 40 countries before returning to Canada to pursue her master's degree in immigration and settlement studies from Ryerson University. She has been educating herself and experiences in 3 languages to work in the field of immigration and international education ever since.
yeah, that's
well,
enough.
That's enough. You want me to stop? I was like, I don't feel like this, but that gives you a little bit. I was like, this is too formal.
I was like, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, I've sent that out to be read, but I was like, oh no, not, you don't have to go through the whole thing. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, and I mean, I've known Claire since I don't even want to put it 2005-ish, 2006-ish at Mount A.
Yeah, whenever you 2006, right? You would have come in. So
I guess that's when we originally connected, and then we sort of reconnected when you moved back to Moncton.
Exactly.
I don't even know how long ago now.
Yeah, a few years. I feel like I've been back in New Brunswick for the past 5.5 years, and yeah, that was kind of my return to the Maritimes. From BC, and I thought it might be just. I think a lot of Maritimers feel this. They're like, oh yeah, reconnect with my maritime roots, definitely saves some money, but maybe, especially working in immigration, I thought I'd be heading back to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, but I've ended up staying here, falling back in love with my maritime roots and Moncton. So yeah.
Moncton. And you grew up in this area.
I grew up in Riverview. And so this is kind of full circle too, because I grew up, my family hosted international students in Riverview from like when I was 12 years old. And so it's kind of cool to see how much like immigration has really been booming in the Moncton area, and how I'm now, working professionally welcoming. Yeah.
So you really grew up in that environment, welcoming newcomers or people that were here maybe on exchanges or.
Exactly. Yeah. So there were 4 kids in my family, and I was definitely the one who was really excited to learn about their culture and also kind of explain what was going on, like what they should know about living in Riverview as a teenager.
Which is funny to think about that. I live in Riverview. Very funny to think about.
Before Facebook, before like Google had probably just come out, so that firsthand experience of when they just arrived, and kind of like cultural exchange, which I still love. So
which you still love.
Yeah.
And you just started your own business. You just incorporated in the last month, I want to say.
Yeah. So I started up part-time last summer, and then I joined the CBDC's self-employment benefit. That's something, I don't know if you've talked about this in the series, but people should look up for if you're starting your own business. And if you're on CERB or EI, then it's a great program available to you if you have a business idea. So I started that in November, starting it full time, and then I incorporated it at the end of January. So yeah, it's it's rocking and rolling. I mean, incorporating for immigration consulting is actually, it's more so, it doesn't mean like you're a major corporation. It mostly is a very smart liability like reason.
Right.
So yeah, it's more sort of for the insurance and separating yourself from the business, but
From the business,
yeah.
which is good advice to anybody out there that might be looking to
Yeah.
start a small business, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself. I rambled on there and then this isn't working. So after you did your master's in Ryerson, what happened?
Yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just like,
no, I was sitting there, I was like, I don't like this.
I felt like I wrote too much in that biography. I didn't realize you were going to read it. So
I might not have told you that.
So like after we, knew each other at Mount A, I went out to the West Coast, worked at the Olympics. That was kind of my first like international experience in 2010. I backpacked, did that like, post university backpacking around Europe. Like I went and taught English in Japan for 2 years, and then did some more backpacking after that, and then got to teach English on a ship called Peace Boat, where I do you remember Breaker High?
Yes.
Okay, so
imagine one of my favorite shows,
right? Ryan Gosling, So imagine Breaker High meets like Japan meets like TED Talks. Kind of put them all together, and I mean, people can go look up Peace Boat and what it actually does, but it circumnavigates the globe from Japan, traveled to 22 countries and back to Japan. So that's where, I do mention that sometimes that I've traveled to 45 countries, and half of them were that way. So yeah. And then
did you teach on the boat?
I was teaching on the boat. Yeah. So I was teaching English. There were about 800 passengers, and I had about 20 students, and yeah, it was very cool. I got to see the world while doing it, and then came back to Canada and decided that I wanted to see how I could put, what I've learned to use. And it's funny because, again, saying how I grew up in Riverview, welcoming international students to our area, I didn't ever think that was like a full-time job in a sense,
No.
But because I don't think that fully existed maybe back then, but it certainly has formalized now into, international student advisors and settlement agencies like Magma. So I decided to come back and get my master's in immigration and settlement studies from Ryerson in Toronto, and then worked first in the settlement side of things. So kind of at a place like Magma or MCAF, as a youth worker, and ran all the youth programs for 2 years in Victoria. But with grad school debt and the salary of a youth worker and the prices of Victoria, I was just like priced out. So I love Victoria. It's still like, I consider myself very bi-coastal. Like I love both the coasts, but I came back to the Maritimes, took a job at Mount A, have worked at the provincial government and NBCC, primarily the past like 5 years, working with international students and newcomers, explaining immigration to them here in New Brunswick. So.
New Brunswick, which has evolved a lot, and even in the last 10 years, when I think back to my time at Mount A and what it looks like now in Greater Moncton, we're seeing more immigration. You may be able to speak to those things with more specific accuracy than I can. So maybe like what you've obviously told us why you started the business. So what do you do? What's your business? What services can you offer?
Good question. So I am a consultant first and foremost. I love sitting down with mostly it's international graduates or like soon to be graduates, anyone who's looking for their pathway to permanent residency, like how to stay in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. I've talked to folks in Ontario. So it's mostly New Brunswick, but the surrounding areas as well. But I do one-on-one consultations with them, kind of just, as I choosily say, like clarifying their immigration pathways, and just explaining, some things that they might be confused about, don't know which path of immigration like program they should be going through. And I also am starting to do full applications, submitting on their behalf. I also do informational webinars. So like I like to put in to Canadian terms, it's like doing your taxes every year. Some people feel totally comfortable doing their taxes on their own. So for those people, they might just attend a webinar, or they might just need a consultation to see what to do, and then they'll do it on their own. or some people, want someone to do all of it for them.
For them. I'm one of those people.
Right.
Here's the papers and go, right. So yeah, that makes sense. So it's not probably a complicated process, and there's probably a lot of technicalities and small things you can't miss. So
that's correct. You got it. Just like your taxes, right?
Right. Yeah. And you're saying from a lot of international students, so people that are here are probably studying presently. So I think U to M, I think, and BCC, and those would be the two predominant ones that come to mind.
Yeah, and again, like obviously Moncton, but because of COVID, almost everything's virtual. Like I have very few, some people do prefer in person. So I have COVID safety in my home office, and I've had a few meetings since the, yellow and stuff, but mostly it's by Zoom. So that's why I said it's, folks from Fredericton, St. John, Ottawa, and also outside of Canada. So like Colombia, Argentina, Nigeria, like, wherever, right?
And I assume your expertise lie in the Canadian process to immigrate to Canada.
Yeah, and under the Canadian immigration, like there's economic immigration, there's family immigration, there's refugee and humanitarian immigration. Mine is primarily under the economic class, so that does include international students, like workers, and then provincial nominee programs, and so that's why I said those are unique to New Brunswick, and the Atlantic Immigration Pilot is unique to the 4 Atlantic provinces. So as you just said, like there's a lot of information out there.
And is there some variability from province to province as well? Yes, I mean, I don't expect you to give us a detailed definition, but I guess I'm just trying to get a bit of scope because I know very little. I knew like there was family immigration. I knew there was economic. I think I would have called it education immigration. But I don't think I knew those other methods existed until
no, for sure. And I've been working on potentially coming up with a webinar called like, Canadian Immigration 101, like, and actually designed for Canadians to learn more about our immigration system, because I don't think most people know how complex it is, and what people do go through to actually become permanent residents here in Canada. And I think it's important that Canadians understand that so they can appreciate.
I think it is. It helps us understand the process they go through, and maybe everything, their drive, their motivation, their reason for being here, and it may help bridge that gap between understanding their reason for being here, because I think there is a lot of people that don't really think about it, right? They just, if they immigrated, that's really cool, that's interesting. Where did you come from? But they don't think past that, because it can take a long time, can it not, the process to complete it?
For sure. Like, and again, like if you look at each of those systems, and I mean, you can Google right now, like IRCC processing times, like anyone who's watching this can go and do that and look at the different times. Like I looked at a spousal sponsorship today, that takes 12 months. Humanitarian and refugee claims take 23 months. And then like there's express entry, which is the most competitive. And again, it'd be interesting to see how many of us, like if we looked at our criteria, what language, education, work experience we have, would we have enough points to immigrate through express entry? It's interesting to think about. So, but that's actually 6 months processing time. Like it's called express entry for a reason. So it really varies. It really varies.
Okay. See, I'm learning new things. I'm like, tell me about this. Tell me about that.
I love it.
That's amazing. And I wish I knew more. I guess it's just one of those things. Like you can't be an expert on everything. So it's talks like this that help us learn. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the biggest barriers newcomers are facing? Now, especially like COVID, that's probably maybe changed that landscape quite a bit. I think like when I think of a newcomer family, I think of all the things that we had in our community to help welcome them, and how even that has probably changed in terms of services and accessibility and not seeing as many people.
Oh, it totally has. Like, because social, like isolation, right? I mean, when you moved, and again, you mentioned at the beginning that I lived in Japan for 2 years teaching, and like I was really lucky. There were a few other teachers in my town as well, but when you go to a new country with completely different language, foods, like just culture around you, you're trying to understand everything. You're trying to keep up with what the social norms are, and it can be tough. Like, and so that already brings a bit of isolation, that you're like, I feel alone, not knowing what's going on here,
It
right?
could be overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. So, so
Yeah.
that comes along at the best of times. Obviously, with COVID, that just made that amplified it, right? Because in the Maritimes, we're a really friendly place and like welcoming place. Like we want to, especially in the winter, get together, right? Like be in spaces with people, and being cut off from that. Like especially, I was working with international students, and at the time, like when COVID first happened, and I was talking to them every day, just because they had gone from being in class with people, with students, with teachers,
right,
to going. Some of them were in an apartment by themselves, just alone, and they don't have their family or friends close by, may not have like financial supports close by, and COVID may have been worse in their country, and then they're only learning through a screen, as all of us are doing now. So
right.
it's definitely been tough. Like that's been an added challenge. And then again, as you have been learning, our immigration system in general is complicated.
Complex.
So that's a barrier to just even understanding how to stay, meeting those criteria,
right,
and having enough money to do so. But also, kind of the softer things, like just adapting to the language. Even if you speak English or French, it may not be the same like English or French that you're used to. The culture, culture is such an invisible thing that a lot of Canadians don't think we have culture. Try going to another country and you'll realize you have culture. So like adapting to our culture. And then there's credential recognition, like, a lot of, if you were a professional overseas, that may not be accepted.
It might not align with our standards.
Exactly. So that's, a big issue, needing to learn a whole new area that you might have done. And then of course, like racism and discrimination, like we can deny it all we want, but it certainly is real and happens. And so there are a few barriers, and I love seeing so much in New Brunswick. There is a lot more discussion about it. There's more workshops.
The conversation seems to have opened up a lot in the last few years.
Exactly. As I said, like from the time I grew up in Riverview to now, like it's a completely different place, and I think for the better. And so it's good. So
can you speak, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, a little bit to the Atlantic immigration plan? I know not in any sort of detail, but just like very high level, if there's anybody out there listening that doesn't necessarily know what you mean when you say that.
Sure. I mean, so like one thing that's New Brunswick specific, but just to give you a sense, when I actually moved back to New Brunswick, it was 2016, and I think everyone remembers the census was being done, right?
Yeah.
So in 2016, New Brunswick was found to be the only province with a population decline instead of population growth.
Remember that.
Do you remember that? So like, so just to give
kind
you
of depressing.
Right. So like, to give you a sense, like that's a major issue in New Brunswick. But it's also, even though Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland didn't have a negative growth, they didn't have very large growth, right? And so when I worked in the provincial government called Population Growth Division, our mandate their mandate has always been to, help New Brunswickers stay in New Brunswick, welcome New Brunswickers back from elsewhere in the country, but also welcome New Brunswickers, right? But like we essentially, those first two, of course, we still need to do all three, but we really need to ramp up immigration. And that's what they've realized, in the past 5 to 10 years. And so the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is for all 4 provinces who have that issue. And so it's an additional 3 immigration pathways to help specifically the Atlantic provinces. because as you asked, in other provinces, there's the federal options, like express entry, for example, and the provincial options, but the Atlantic provinces have another option. The
See, I didn't know that. I had no idea. So
and the nice thing about it, there have been some challenges for sure, because it was a pilot program. It's been announced that it's going to be becoming permanent. But there are definitely advantages because it gets the employer involved, it gets the settlement agencies involved, meaning that there are more people, caring about the newcomers' arrival and settlement.
Well, there's a network, a system, right, for these people.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is that it was showed, I think I saw it in Huddle, that there's been an 80% retention rate through these programs versus some of our immigration programs, it's between 60 and 70%. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah. So the pilot has shown that it has a higher retention rate of like, okay, they maybe this program has worked to settle them more than others. So.
And when you say retention, do you mean retention to say the Atlantic provinces?
Yeah. So okay, to staying in this, so like, immigrating, becoming a permanent resident is one thing, but then when you become a permanent resident, you have the same mobility rights as any Canadian. You can live and work wherever you want. But with the pilot, it's a higher retention rate. So that's a good thing.
That's really great, because that's also something I often wonder. Do they immigrate to the bigger centers do they move, right? Once they're here?
Some do, like, you can't deny that. Like, some go for better opportunities that they can't find here in Atlantic Canada. Also, there may be family or friends like that tie them there, but a lot of people do come to Atlantic Canada wanting the smaller towns, the slower pace of life. Like, I meet so many who genuinely want to stay here, but they encounter some barriers, and so I hope that we can work as provinces to ensure that we can help them overcome those barriers. So
help meet their needs, and businesses like yours are really great place for people to start that need support in the process and when they get here.
Totally. And I should say that if anyone who's watching this, it's of course my clients are primarily newcomers, but of course if there are any Canadians, employers who are listening to this and have any questions, would like some orientation services on immigration, I'd be happy to help too. So
yeah, because sometimes it's the knowledge, right? People don't know the right questions to ask to get the information.
Sure. Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of the role so far? I mean, that's a pretty big question too.
It's a big question, but I do really love just being a part of that process of relieving a little bit of stress or clarifying some things for my clients and really being a part of their journey to staying here permanently in Atlantic Canada. I really love that. I love, maybe you know this about me, I'm a people person. I had
no idea.
I love meeting people. People from different backgrounds. I don't know, it's great. It's what I've really loved since I was young. So
and I think the Maritimes, it's so great to be, in some ways you have such a long history in the region that you just probably bring that real genuine passion to wanting people to stay here. Not that other people can't, but you're
I'm a proud Maritimer, as I said.
You're selling it.
Yeah, sorry. I love New Brunswick. I've spent 2/3 of my life in New Brunswick. My parents and sister are in Nova Scotia. Every summer I spend in PEI, so I'm a Maritimer for sure.
I know we have so much to offer here, and I think we often get overlooked, and that's changing.
Changing.
It's changing fast, and Moncton is growing so quickly. Despite even COVID, you're still seeing growth, and that is phenomenal.
Well, because we've also been a really safe place relatively during COVID, so that's also something. And again, considering housing prices across Canada, Atlantic Canada is still more affordable, so there are a lot of positives, but
a lot of advantages and positives. I think we already touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the important factors to consider? Why is immigration so important to our cities and our communities and our provinces? Obviously we touched on population, but what else does that mean?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And again, obviously when people look at it, statistically, like, okay, we actually absolutely need more people to work in New Brunswick. We don't have enough young people. We have a lot of older people.
We have the oldest average age in the country. Last time I checked. Yeah, and that's just a fact.
Totally. And so there's like clearly that workforce population growth, as we discussed, but like so much more than that I think and I hope that people are starting to realize is, fresh perspective, like the language, the culture, the point of view, the vibrancy that is brought here is, like I learned so much by spending 2 years in Japan, right? Like just a completely different way of like seeing how you do everyday life because it's a different culture, right? And bringing that back here has been an asset to me in my life and my work. So just think about that with every newcomer we have, like they're bringing something completely different and unique that could solve so many issues. Like they create jobs and businesses that we wouldn't have thought of if we
and they solve problems we wouldn't have thought. Like there's just
so it's a huge asset in many ways. Like that's what I mean. Yeah.
I guess shifting gears a little bit, maybe less about your business specific and more about you as a business woman, since we are BPW. But who inspires you? Like role models, who has shaped kind of Claire of 2021 when you look back?
a lot.
Yeah, I imagine there's more than one name.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think I don't know if you saw my post, but like on International Women's Day, I shared like the women who inspire me.
Yes.
And I write that I do a reflection every year, and I mean I don't know if you saw, but like there were so many people. Like that's what I thought of in like less than 5 minutes. I couldn't stop writing.
No. Yeah.
So there are a lot. Like I mean, obviously my mom is a huge inspiration to me, like politically, but also she actually used to be a small business owner when we grew up in Winnipeg. And so she's actually been able to help with a few pointers in owning my own business. I mean, if we're talking local to Moncton, I'll give a few shout outs to like Natalie Davidson, Melissa Doucette, actually an RCIC who works in the international student realm as well is Lisa Noor, and she works with, I mean, Anglophone and Francophone, but essentially me on the Francophone side is very much Lisa, and she's been doing it longer than I have. So like I really appreciate chatting with her because immigration consulting is very niche and there aren't many of us in Atlantic Canada. So she's a huge inspiration to me in this field. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's something really phenomenal about women and in the Moncton, the community is women are always willing to help, support, share their experiences.
Yeah,
and I think that is just phenomenal. I don't know what other word to use. It's just really, so great.
It is. And like we've been building this on the political side, like with Democracy Now.
Yes.
And like it's kind of like the formalized version of like the BPW on the political side. And like I just love that these things exist in Moncton, and yeah, it's awesome. And so let's keep it going. Like that's why I said I love
in the collaboration. We just have a really great collaborative environment. The fact that you can like write 50 people on a piece of Bristol board like that's
easy.
Amazing.
And I miss so many people. Like
you inspired me because I started thinking about it, and then I saw Natalie post hers. I was like, oh, and then I was like, I'm gonna, and it's you don't. There's just so many great people that we're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about like starting up the business? Did you face any I mean, not the nitty gritty, but we sometimes as females we face different barriers or challenges to start becoming an entrepreneur, starting our own business, maybe resistance.
Yes. all of those things. Like I've worked up until this experience, I've worked in the public sector, so at non-for-profits, in the public school system, in the post-secondary institution, like, in government. Like I have not worked in the private sector. So I found it was a pretty steep learning curve. And I've actually found that it was I'd say it was more challenging. It's been more challenging almost than running in a political campaign because you don't have a team. And so I also want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to my team that have helped me through 2 political campaigns, because I don't know, being a business owner, like, you are everything, right? You're the administrator, the financial, like, accountant. You're promoting, you do media, you know, obviously, if once you get going and you have a bit more funding or capital, resources, you can start delegating that. But from the beginning, it's all you, and it's been challenging. I'll be honest. So hats off to all of the business and professional women out there, because it's not easy. But it's been, so in that way, like, it's been a really exciting, challenging, like, a period of growth for sure, like learning all of these new skills. And I am grateful to the CBDC for there's a 2-week business like course that they offer I think it's every month. And that was really helpful to start up. And as I said, obviously the self-employment benefit is a huge asset as well. Yeah,
there's tools and resources out there, but people might not even know about them. And do you think there's any challenges that you face uniquely as a female? And you might not be able to answer that yet. Maybe you don't know.
True. That's the thing. I feel like I've been going. I like to describe it, and I'm sure others have described this as well, but like, it's like riding a bicycle while you're building it. Like, it's just I haven't had time to kind of really look up to be like, what are my barriers? It's just like, am I getting everything done? Yeah. So it's been fun. I like a challenge.
And you're gonna do a great job. I have zero doubt. And I know people. I mean, I've already seen you all over social media, so people are talking about it, and the word is getting out. So
well, and the thing is that because there aren't it's not like Toronto, like this market in New Brunswick is not oversaturated, right? So it is and this is what I realized, that when I was working in the public sector, like in the government and Mount Allison and MBCC, was that there weren't many affordable immigration consultants. And, because international student advisors can only do so much, they have 800, 1,000 like students that they're trying to help with everything. They can't do that one-on-one.
They can't be everything.
Yeah, they can't be everything. So filling this niche, I'm really lucky that I haven't had to really start like promoting, like putting my funding into promotion, because it's already something that was needed. And so
people will find you, and word of mouth is really powerful. And the age of the social media is really powerful in things like this.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe talk a little bit about female leadership? Do you think, and that's kind of a big, broad question, but for women leaders, what do you think are some of the overall challenges we face?
I'd say there are two or three. Like, obviously, there are lots, and everyone has different strengths or weaknesses, so that's also a bit individualized. But I'd say in general, I think that self-confidence is something that, in this comes to politics as well, right? It comes to a lot of things.
Me sitting here when I was like back in November, okay, I can do it live, not a big deal. Like, I have no shame in saying that, but it's totally outside of my comfort zone. Things in the public sphere, right? Like, we still are not as socialized to be like totally comfortable or confident in those spaces. So I think that self-confidence, like, being your own worst critic, being like just so nervous to actually like go forward on writing that final contract or sending that first invoice or, hosting your first web, whatever, like meeting with your first client. Like, I think that your self-confidence is something, maybe this isn't
most women, but I felt, and I think that may be a barrier for women. So I think self-confidence, and then that ties into support, as you mentioned, like being an entrepreneur is a kind of a lonely solo project, and not always knowing where to turn for support is something that I'm still learning. And I actually have, at the end of this, I'm gonna have a call out for support. And then the third thing is finance. You know, like finances is, do you have the capital, the funding, the confidence in others to give you funding or capital to start? So I think those are three big ones that,
or like the knowledge to navigate the financial. Like I know I read
Totally.
regularly places that females don't always feel as confident in their ability to manage finances and know where to go and who to ask. And I think that's
Totally.
becoming a more important, is becoming a more dominant conversation. Even as young as school age children, like learning those skills. I often think of that, like, why did nobody teach me this stuff when I was 14 in high school?
Totally agree.
The things that I learned as an adult, just because you have to and you take the time to do it.
Well, and again, this is kind of a general
it's a general life lesson.
A general life lesson. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think there's as much of a gender when it comes to like financial knowledge. I've had this conversation with my partner a lot in terms of like how much we don't talk about finances, how much we are a bit of a debt culture in North America, and we don't talk about that.
We don't talk.
We have this like huge overlying fear of, like, let's say taxes, for example, or at least I had that until when I was working at Mount Allison. I had to lead the tax workshop for international students, and I had never done. I'd sent my taxes to H&R Block, which is totally fine. Again, I was like, here, just do it. I don't know anything about it.
I give them to my husband, which sounds awful, but I just don't have the interest, and I've never had the need.
Right. And I just think that it is a life skill that we should, as you said, should be taught in school a lot more often. And so after I taught that session to international students, I became a lot more comfortable with the forms. And so I've done my taxes every year since. But I'm also, again, feeling a bit like lack of confidence to be like, okay, this year, starting a business, like beyond the eye, bought a house, like all these things. I'm like, am I going to be able to figure it out? So anyway, that's, finances in terms of getting finances and being financially independent, but also being confident, talking about finances, understanding finances. Yeah.
Not being ashamed to go ask the questions to people or look for guidance or advice.
Well, and that comes to the self-confidence and support. Like, so yeah.
What are you still learning? Like right now, like I think also like right now, if I had to ask you today, like, what did you learn? You must learn something new every day.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, I think actually I would put finances on there. Like, I would say, if there are any accountants out there listening, and I know, like, COVID can't call me.
Call Claire.
But just because CBDC does give you like accounting, like basics, but as I mentioned, with all those new things last year, I'm like, am I going to be able to file my taxes? Like, do I know how to do this? So finances is still something that I'm trying to get better and more confident in understanding. I'm kind of ashamed to announce this, especially like on this live already. I don't have a website yet. And it's like, what? But I do, like, I have Facebook, I have Instagram, and I have like a booking site. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I checked it out.
Thank you. But I don't have a comprehensive website. And I'm like, is that something I should build myself? Like, is there anyone out there? So this is my second call out. Anyone out there who like wants to help me build my website? And then the third time is just like really learning your time and priority management. Like, I think maybe we're better that, like, when we're working with a team, working under a manager, you're like, okay, I've been given my tasks. I know how to schedule properly. I find working for yourself, it's like everything's a priority and you're working so many hours. Like,
and now we're all home. We're always alone. There's that extra layer of independence, right?
So those are the things I'm still learning. If anyone has any advice on any of those, please reach out. I'm not ashamed to ask. I need to be asking more. So,
and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think as females, we forget that sometimes, that
we don't need to know everything. Yeah,
we don't need to be. I always say I don't need to be an expert on everything, and I don't think we can't be experts on everything.
No, definitely not. So.
What motivates you every day? Like, you are one of the most vibrant people I know. You always seem to have so much energy, and you're happy. What keeps you going?
Keeps me like this. Well, yeah. I mean, of course, you're getting
my mom hair, my body.
No, it's okay. You know, as I said, I lead these monthly webinars, so I do have like a ring light. You know, so this doesn't happen naturally, like did my makeup, whatever. But no, I really do like love working with clients. Like I love the work that I'm doing. So that obviously motivates me to keep doing work that is needed and that I'm good at, I enjoy, right? But also, yeah, it comes down to the financials. Like it's like I own a house. I have a car. Like I need to be able to afford these things. So yeah. I need to keep going on this business. I need to keep moving it forward. When you don't have a salary, an income like that's stable, like you need to create it and consistent. Yeah. So that's a legitimate motivator every morning. So yeah, those are the things that keep they're motivating.
Keep you motivated. I like you're keeping it real. Yes. What advice would you give women leaders or women who want to lead, if there's anybody out there? I mean, lead's a really large question. So maybe it's start a business, but they're too nervous to, or maybe it's someone out there listening that's a student that wants to run for something or head up a committee or a fundraiser, but they don't have the confidence to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I mean, the first thing I don't know, if you're listening to this question, you're probably doing the right first step is I think coming out and listening and learning from people who are already doing it is a pretty good way to point you in that direction of actually stepping up, right? Like I mentioned this when I was running in the election, and I've mentioned this in Democracy Now, is that I felt so fortunate because I had firsthand experience of my mom running an election to see, what's it take, what's it like, but also knowing someone personally that, okay, she can do it, like maybe I could do it. It made it more tangible, right? So I'd say the first advice I would say is reach out to people who are already doing it. I mean, of course, if no one's doing what you want to do yet, that's cool too. And you have the fire to be the first. I hope that inspires you.
And there's going to be so many people that'll rally behind you.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Oh my gosh. That's such a huge thing that you don't know until you actually step out and do it, is the support you get from people is usually a lot more than you ever thought possible. Yes. So yeah, if you've got a good idea, let's say if it's a business, if you've got the fire, the passion, the motivation to run, like for a position, whether it's municipal, whether it's federal, provincial, whether it's your town, or whether it's your student council. Yeah, exactly. If you've got that, I call it that fire, but you know what I mean? That like burning, like,
or like that feeling, I don't know.
Energy, yeah, the feeling,
yeah.
Then trust that, right? Like trust that, follow that, and learn more about it. But then honestly, you're never going to be ready to start a business, run in an election, become a parent. Like there are no, right? I'm looking to you, actually.
Yeah, never. It just happens. No, right? You're never ready.
Yeah. So it's like that. There is a moment that you just gotta go for it, right? So yes.
So I have one last question.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, actually, I have two last questions.
Okay, sure.
So question number one, I'm going to throw funding in there because why not?
Okay.
Like, what's your favorite thing to do in like Moncton? If someone was coming to visit, where would you take them? If whether they were a
Oh,
newcomer or maybe they're coming from BC, one of your friends, like what would you do? Where would you take them to eat? What would your first activity be?
all right. All right. I'm gonna do a seasonal one. Like
Yeah, go
I've
for
got
it.
summer and winter.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm ready.
I think summer, I would definitely Euston Park.
Yes.
Yeah, so like Euston Park is like one of my favorite summer places. I would, meet friends there, go for a bike ride all the way along the waterfront and then go back to Euston Park. Like I've done that. I've done that loop a few times. Like, started and then ended with. Well, we also have, I guess, Holy Whale. You could do it either side.
Yes.
So you can do
one of my
Holy
favorite
Whale,
locations
exactly,
on the Riverview
or
side.
the Moncton side.
Yeah.
That's what I would definitely recommend for summer. If it was winter, I would take a drive along the Riverview waterfront with those lights. It is just, I love it.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
It's so pretty. It doesn't get old. So
No.
yeah.
I did it like 3 times this year, I'm pretty sure.
Walk, drive, whatever, just see those lights. It's so pretty. So yeah, those are my river focused, I guess, things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I was like, oh, where we and where's like, I don't know, your favorite sit down meal in Moncton?
Well, that's tough.
That's tough, I know. I think I'm just hungry and I want to go eat this weekend. So I'm like, oh, where would Claire go?
That is really tough. Like, because I love, like, Moncton has, I think, okay, so my favorite pad thai exists in Fredericton, but I'd say Moncton has like the best food places in New Brunswick. Sorry, other places in New Brunswick, but like Moncton is got your the last place I ate was Tandoori Zaika. Do you know? Yeah,
yes, there. I've only been once. It's very good.
I really liked. So that's the first thing that came to mind. So, but no, that's not true. Santeria is actually like it's Malaysian food. So good. So either of those, but almost anything, you can't go wrong. So yeah,
you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And then on a more like formal note, if people want to get in touch with you right now, what's the best way? Facebook?
Yeah, definitely social media. Seeing that I've read your message holds me accountable. Again, real talk. Like, if you can call me, you can email me, but like I think social media is actually the best way to reach out. So either Instagram, Claire in the World, or Facebook, Claire in the World, like or email claireintheworld@gmail.com. So it's all Claire in the World.
Claire in the World.
Claire in the World.
I'm just getting that now. Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and yes, I learned a lot, so thanks. Cool. And I hope to maybe see you soon. We'll see where the world takes us in the next couple of months.
Actually, Ashley, I have one final pitch for you, and I'm actually going to. You said you want to learn more. I am having a webinar on Sunday. Yes. Sorry, I didn't tell you about this in advance. I'm sorry, but I'm having a webinar on Sunday, and it's a fundraiser for a newcomer who recently had a baby but was not covered under Medicare, and she is paying all out of pocket for that, for being in the hospital, for having a baby. So my webinar is not going to raise a lot of money, but it will raise more money if any of you folks attend. So that's my one pitch. None of the profits are going fully to her. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
If you want to learn about immigration,
so I'll check it out. Yeah. What time is it on Sunday? Just so everybody knows.
1 p.m. Yeah.
Perfect. It's nap time. So
there you go.
Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ashley. Bye.
Bye.